Set this thing will load. I think I might have crashed it.
That's not
You're gonna throw me off a little bit today.
Yeah, I don't know what's. It's
when they're working.
everything's crazy.
When they
They
don't.
don't. You're in trouble.
That's right. Okay. All right. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening. As always, I'd like to ask someone here to do the opening ceremonies.
I'll do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick.
Our most kind and gracious Father in heaven, as we humbly come before Thee, as we discuss the power needs of the citizens of Kaysville, we would ask that we might be able to be inspired and know what would be best as we sit here and talk about things. We would ask for Thy Spirit to be with us, that we might be able to make the wisest decisions for those people who we represent. We are grateful for this land which we live in, the freedoms which we have, and grateful for the opportunity we have to be able to serve. And we say these things humbly in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We'll do introductions. We'll start with you, Jordan.
Yep. Jordan Stevenson.
Patrick Hine.
Brock Thane.
Alan Farnes.
Stacy Harvard.
Gary Hatch.
Bruce Rigby.
Okay. So we'd like to open with the mission statement as well. So I'll just read that for everyone here as we're going through and making decisions. It helps to really narrow in and focus on what our goals are and our objectives. So our mission statement is Kaysville City Power and Light. Its mission is to provide reliable electricity with superior customer service at a competitive price to the residents and businesses in Kaysville City. So on to the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from April 3rd. Was there any changes that anyone had for the meeting minutes?
I don't have any.
None from me.
Nope.
Okay. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 3rd.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. And then sorry for the confusion on the commercial rates. I appreciate you sending those out again. I believe that we've approved them, and then I think we lost the recording, so I'm just going to do it again
Okay.
and make sure that we're all in agreement on the rates that we discussed. So Jordan sent out the rates, so what I'll just say is, was there any changes to the rates, any suggestions, or is everyone in agreement on the rates that was sent out?
I'm in agreement.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the commercial rates as discussed and presented to the community.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay. So on that as well is there was aggregation. So I just wanted to kind of walk through that concept to make sure we're all in agreement. I know there was emails, and I don't know if that was actually voted on either, but I know we talked about it and wanted to make sure that we were on the same page. But for definition is if we have multiple meters, there would be no virtual net metering from one meter to the other. Whatever solar connection that was connected to that meter, it had to offset that meter. Is that how everyone took that?
Simplify 1 meter for one solar array, correct? That's
right.
what we're saying, right?
That's
Okay.
accurate.
Yes,
Yep, and no credits would be transferred virtually to another meter.
correct.
Okay, so with that, I think I'd entertain a motion to approve that language on aggregation.
I'll make the motion to be consistent.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay. So the next item here was the 30-day notice to grandfathered customers. I wanted to make sure, I know we were talking on that for the newsletter, and I hadn't received it, so I just put it on here just for discussion. Maybe just update us on
Right, yeah, I don't know if you guys paid attention after we went back and forth kind of changing the wording. There were those two different things that we were talking about. So for the new one, the new net metering agreement, or whatever we want to call it, talks about the city will only compensate the generating facility customer up to but not exceeding the amount that it consumes in kilowatt hours during a calendar year. If the customer generates more kilowatt hours than they consume through the calendar year, that excess will be forfeited. At the end of the year, the city will review the customer's account and the billing adjustment will be made for any overpayment to the customer received during the previous year. The adjustment will be prorated over the next 6 months. So that's what we were, kind of what we talked about last time. We tried to make it.
Yeah.
I talked to the billing people and stuff, and that worked out the best, as far as billing to accommodate that. So that was the one change that we talked about. And then for the grandfathered customers that we grandfathered, we talked about trying to square up each month instead of, to alleviate all that excess work that, is being hand done and things. So that was the other thing. So yeah, we just talked about paying the grandfather credits for the customers received monthly. Like I said, it would be beneficial, for the net meter customers, obviously, because they're going to get, retail each month, instead of waiting until the end of the year and then getting our wholesale rate. But it would save our billing department a lot of time and, manpower each month also. So those two things, I'd like to, get you guys' approval so we could take that to the city council, those two things to the city council.
Okay. And I think the only thing that we were saying in addition to that, right, is I think we were all in agreement on the language and the changing from yearly checks to monthly checks. I think the only thing I would just add is that we give the notice to just when we go to city council is we wanted to give that 30-day notice to. Yes, we would have. That's what it would have. It says that in our net meter agreements that the council can change at any time with 30 days notice. So if they approve it, then we would send out a letter to all of them explaining that, give them 30 days notice, and then be able to start that after that 30-day grace period.
Just to be clear on that, it's kilowatt hour for kilowatt hour. We're not giving them credit for their monthly customer charge, right?
No, yeah, it's not for that.
Just kilowatt hour for kilowatt
hour. Exactly.
Okay. And that was in the notes. Do you want us to approve that again? It was in the meeting minutes, or do you want us to do a motion on that?
If you could do a motion on both those, and then then we can take it to council.
Give me the names. What should we call them?
Yeah.
We have.
What do you want to call it? What do you want to call it? Well, for the grandfathered ones, it's just truing up each month. But I'm not sure what the wording you want to put it in.
So is it monthly netting, or what would you call it, Jordan?
Well, really, what's really changing is just when the check gets cut, right? It's rather than the end of the year, it's going to be monthly. So I think it's just the timing of the payment or compensation timing for customers.
There you go. That sounds good.
Okay.
So a monthly compensation for excess solar rather than annual.
Okay.
And then the other one, however you want to word it, the one for the
30-day notice language.
And then the other one with it not to exceed the kilowatt hour consumption per year. On all the new
four-footed volume. Yeah. So the other one would be four-footed credit balance. How would we say that?
Yeah, adjusted. At the end of the year, I don't know how you want to word it.
Maybe adjusted credit balance, is that?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah, I think that's.
Okay. And also, just to clarify, that would include the 3 or 4 that we already have on there now. We would send a letter, obviously, to them, saying that was going to change, for them too on the new agreements.
That's right. So for clarity, what you're saying is there's been 4 systems that have went in effect with the new structure, and so those 4 would get the notice that they would be moving to that credit balance as well.
Yeah, and I guess there's probably more than that because there's some in the works also. So anyone that's in the process would have to be notified, and then we obviously change the new agreement, and then from then on it would be in there. So.
And how would you propose, you know, if there's resistance on those customers, what do we?
It states in there that city council has the right to
Okay.
change or discontinue completely if they wanted to, or,
Okay.
they have that power.
Kind of a mute point at that. I mean, it's an agreement with the city that the city can amend, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, not that anybody's trying to step on anybody's toes, but
Sure. Okay. Okay, so let's do one at a time. So the monthly compensation, make sure we're on the same page. Just for clarity, all we're changing is from yearly checks to monthly checks. So I'd entertain a motion to approve switching to monthly compensation
For all grandfathered,
for all
Right,
grandfathered
okay.
customers.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Okay. And then the next one, will you read the language one more time?
You bet. So the city will only compensate a generating facility customer up to, but not to exceed, the amount that it consumes in kilowatt hours during the calendar year. If the customer generates more kilowatt hours than they consume through the calendar year, that excess will be forfeited. At the end of the year, the city will review the customer's account, and a billing adjustment will be made for any overpayment the customer received during the previous year. The adjustment will be prorated over the next 6 months.
Okay, perfect. So I'd like to entertain a motion for the language for adjusted credit balance that Bruce just read.
I'll make the motion, and just for my own personal caveat, I like the 6 months that we put in there. I think we talked about last month, and I was concerned that there would be one big adjustment in April, and so that 6 month kind of evens that out, which I think is a good solution to that. So I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I missed it, so I'll sit this one out.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Go to the next one here. I'm just gonna get my stuff up. Okay, so the next one is, so it kind of dovetails with the PV oversized in the newsletter. So I know this is one thing we really wanted to push out with these adjustments of how to size a system and those types of things. I was looking around, and I know, John, I know you were taking a look at this as well as far as writing this up, but I did find, like the city of Boulder, they have a system size. What is it? What do they do? What do you need? All these types of things. And I know we reached out to the industry, so I'm just going to ask if there was any success on this, or what your thoughts were. I'm going to go right to the public on. I know we're working on this, so if you don't mind, come on up and kind of telling us what your thoughts were there.
My name is Eric. I'm a Kaysville City resident, but I also do work for Vivint Solar. But anyway, after the last month's meeting, Brock, you and I had spoken, and I reached out to Ryan Evans with the association. Did he not get in touch with you?
I did not hear from Ryan, so.
Okay, I apologize.
No worries.
Talked to him about the opportunity to have something in the newsletter about the appropriate size for a solar array, and I thought he was going to follow up with you, so I apologize. I'll reach out to him.
No worries, I can reach out too.
Okay. Sorry, Brock.
Oh, no worries. Thank you. So just so we're on the same page, we thought that we'd reach out to the industry. Ryan Evans is the Utah Solar Association president on, and thought that would be the appropriate location. But as you guys, and I can send the link out as well. Do we know when the due date is to hit the next newsletter? By chance?
Is it every other month?
It's every other month. I believe it's every other month that the newsletter goes up. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, maybe check with Maria and find out.
Okay.
I think it's May though that we have, the next one comes out.
We'll have to email some.
Okay, if you'll just email the group and let us know, and then I'll just loop Ryan Evans in, and then let's make sure, I'll just distribute that out to everybody. But if you take a look, and I'll send out the link for Boulder City, but if you take a look at their system, I think it might be something that we were looking to do anyway, was just to put that right on the website, and it just said, you know, plug in your power bills, and here's what your system size should be, you know, those types of things. So I'll send the link out, but let's take a look at it, and maybe if we wanted to, you know, even if we wanted to reach out to them, I'm sure that they'd be happy to share what they've put out there. So
was their system set up for 100% coverage? Is that what they were doing on Boulder? You said.
So they just have you know, educate their customers. If my computer would work, I'd be able to pull it up. But what they did on there is they just did, you know, plug in your power bills, and then they'd help you size the system so that you're not getting a system that's oversold. And they had different rate structures, so you could kind of just click down and it would tell you what rate structure and, you know, those types of things. So I don't think they were saying, you know, what was best or any of that. They were just trying to educate, and that was the approach they took. So. Okay, so I'll keep this on here. If we can just find the date and and I'll reach out to Ryan. So I'm gonna table the residential connection fee and move right to the max residential system size. So I know we had a lot of discussion on this last month, and I just wanted to see if there was anything else that we thought. I know, Alan, you had some concerns on, you know, again, it goes dovetailed with our last discussion of people oversizing a system. I think with this new changes that, you know, do you still feel the same way as far as, you know, the language we just approved? Is that still an issue? Are we close to, you know, is it 15 kW now with that language, or how does everyone feel as far as that system size?
That compensation based on kilowatt hours for kilowatt hours applies to both the net metering customers and whatever we're calling the other non-net metering customers. So I think that will encourage them not to oversize. So even though I still think we're allowing bigger systems than most people need. But if they want to overproduce and not get compensated for it, I guess they can do that.
Yeah. So does anyone else have any issues? If we just pick 15 kW, that's kind of where we've been at.
Yeah, and I think that would require no change at this point.
Yes.
Because it's already in the rules that way.
Okay.
So I think the only change is the one we've already approved.
Made
and
today.
then I would be comfortable leaving the 15 kW as is for now.
Okay.
With the addition of that change we just made. So.
Okay.
I would like to readdress it after we have time of use metering in place.
Okay.
I think that will give us, like a year later, that would give us a lot more information, and then we can more accurately go, okay, what do we really need? And so 15 is kind of a placeholder for now.
Okay. I'll put a note, and then there's a list, just so everyone knows, is if you guys ever want to add to our list of, you know, future, I'm writing them down and I'm putting them on there, and then I'm pulling them in, but it's always on the Dropbox, and Stacy just puts it as a separate sheet, so we just pull from that every month. So I'll put that on there, and then I'll just put a note in parentheses so everyone sees it that we'll review it after time of use. So, okay. And the next one was the financial planning review. This kind of dovetailed with the budget. I don't know, Jordan, maybe catch us up. I don't know if you had a chance to review. I know we were going to review the model with Dean.
Yeah, today I don't have an update to report on that, but
okay.
I don't know if that's a specific thing. We might want Dean to be involved in that discussion. So maybe I'll reach out for our next meeting, kind of coordinate with Dean and maybe have him involved as well.
Okay, do you want him to come in here? Should we shoot for having him come
I think
in?
that
Or?
would probably be best, and I guess it depends on what the goal is and what kind of the information we need, but I think what we're all interested in is what that process will look like going forward, and kind of taking the budget that the power department has planned for the year, and then how the model we've generated would kind of fit into that, and coordinating those. So I think it would make sense to have Dean involved in that discussion as well. And sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say. So, what do you have? Tell us kind of what you think what you have envisioned for that.
Yeah. So the way that the model's set up, I tried to use the published data that the city had already been kind of putting together. So we have all the various cost elements in their categories as is. You know, the spreadsheets kind of, you plop that in and then it flows through to the model. And so it should be pretty seamless, but I think there's just things we'd want to work through with Dean to make sure they're comfortable doing that. And then I think we wanted to have him report on, you know, how that looks going forward, and if they have an update on the rate structure or the rate level with the new budget coming in.
Okay, and I know maybe Gary and Bruce, is there something that you guys would like to see specifically from us on that? Because I think the main concern, right, is setting the budgets and making sure that the models jive so that we don't get into, you know, a disconnect.
You mean as far as staying revenue neutral, that you're talking about, making sure?
Yeah, so just watching our cost levels, you know, we put in to our rate proposal based on the costs, what they were at the time, which was getting to be about a year old. And so with inflation or with different things that have happened over the last year, it's just sitting down with the finance department and getting what the actuals were last year, and then kind of what do we expect to happen in this next year, and are we collecting where we need to be? And I see that as being maybe an annual process, maybe even a semi-annual process, so we don't let things get too far out of whack and then we have to do a bigger rate increase one year or decrease or whatever it is, just if we kind of stay on top of it. As long as the model's set up to take the data as Dean's group already is preparing it, it should be, my goal is that we tailor the process so that the reports they put out, you put into this Excel model, and everything's kind of calculated in there. If there's any kind of strange one-time adjustments or something, you kind of review that and look at it. But so that would be the goal. And
okay. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Dean mentioned that they had the bandwidth to take on that modeling. Now that you've kind of put that effort in, I believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, that he had some, or they, you know, the city had some bandwidth where they could do most of that modeling.
Yeah, I think he felt comfortable with it. We've sat down a couple times and gone over the spreadsheet with Dean and also a staff member at the city.
Okay.
I think they have a level of comfort, but it's probably something I'll want to sit down with them a couple more times, one-on-one, to hand it off officially, and that we can do this time, and then let them take ownership of that model from there on. So.
Okay, so
I would keep it on there, maybe even make it more of a work item, so there's more time devoted to it.
Okay.
Maybe for next month, and then we can coordinate with Dean to see if he'd be willing to come and kind of present what the results look like. I'm not sure how far along they are in that budget process for the upcoming year.
I believe they met once with council, but I believe they meet again later on. I'll have to look at the agenda for what they have for the budget. But
So our period is, we report on a year ending May 31, don't we?
June.
Or it's a year end June? Okay,
June.
so we may actually be a little early today. I think let's wait for the actuals to come in through June, get our annual report done, and then that's a good time to look at what the actual expenses were.
Okay.
So we could probably hold off on that discussion until closer to late July or maybe our early August meeting.
Okay, I'll put August agenda. Does
Yeah,
that work?
let's do August agenda on that.
Okay.
I think that'll work. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on the financial planning review? Okay.
I would like to see some 5-year planning. What do we need to prepare for and get our rates set to be able to fund in a 5-year plan, which is probably an extension of what you're talking about. It's another step beyond that. But
Yeah, and there was an exhibit that Bruce had provided. The city gave a 5-year plan, and that's in the model. And I'm assuming that's something they prepare yearly, but I could be wrong in that assumption. But I think we would want to ask them to prepare that each year going forward. So you're just updating
and it's
that
funded.
5-year.
It's got cost estimates built into it.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Different categories. So we just want to get a new copy of that and see what's going on and how it's shifting on us.
Yeah, and I think to that point, it'd be good to make sure, Gary, when you submit yours, that it aligns with what's in that model. So if there's any changes, and then would it be possible? Do you feel like we'll have the reliability study by August? Because that's where we're going to get a lot of those costs from, right? Is from that study. Do you think that's too soon, or?
They have not got back to me yet. I'm going to reach out to them again shortly. I believe I would like to recommend going with the ECI.
Okay.
So I did reach out to that Bruce
Lemire's?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he hasn't gone back to me yet.
Okay.
So as soon as I find out any more information, I'll either email you or wait until the next meeting. But I'd like to let you guys be informed as soon as I get in touch with them and kind of talk to them, get a proposal. Then what I'll do is email that proposal to you guys, see if I missed anything or if we need to add anything. And then I'll present it to, depending on the cost, will depend on what direction I need to go with that.
Okay. And it would be nice, I'm not saying this is the deadline by no means, but it'd be nice if we had that at the same time we were reviewing the budget, so then we could see, where that delta is and how much. So August would be ideal. I mean, we can slide that August date if we needed to.
Yeah.
So if we could target that. Okay. Anything else on the financial planning? Okay. So the next item is the commercial feed-in tariff. So I know we were working through some of those items. John and I didn't have a chance to connect yet. Got a little busy, but so I am still working on them. I know we've already approved the rates, but I was just going to show them what it looks like from the business side of things. So I have that. I actually had it today, but this isn't working, so it doesn't do me any good. So John, I'm just going to table that as well and bring that back if that's okay for next month, unless you had something, John.
Not on the commercial feed and tariff. Mostly about the back feed capacity.
Okay. So I'm gonna table that one unless someone else had anything else or wanted to go over that. Okay.
Is there any commercial customers that are really looking for an answer right away? I know the CFO of Maverick was anxious to get some solar put in. Or are we just looking at them on a case-by-case basis right now?
Well, yeah, everybody's waiting for us to get that finalized. So these guys across the street, on that one, they were waiting. And then the other question that we really haven't talked about details on was the hydro also. And, yeah, we need to address that, too, on the commercial sizing. We haven't talked about commercial sizing, what you're going to do, or,
So what are the outstanding? So the rates are approved now, and aggregation is approved. So that would allow these guys to move. Or aggregation is not approved. So now
right.
Can they move?
But are we gonna? But we haven't talked about what percentage of their load we're going to let them do, or if we're going to mandate it by percentage of their demand, or however we want to do that. And then, like I say, we have to have kind of a different category for that hydro, because that's a different animal too.
Okay, so thank you for refreshing me. So yes, so last month we talked about the percent of loads, and it's in the meeting minutes here. So you're exactly right. I know we talked about kilowatt, or what was the maximum per kilowatt? Did we want to do demand? So is there any other thoughts or discussion on what we want to limit that to?
I've just kind of as a first round, and again, this goes back to needing time of use metering and things like that, but I think as a first go around, I think demand charge would be a good metric for the maximum system size. And maybe it's not 100% the size of their demand charge. Like say, so for example, 10 kilowatt demand, they say 10 kilowatt solar, or 120 kilowatts of demand, then 120 kilowatt solar. Maybe it's not 1 for 1, maybe it's 60-70% of that or something like that. I think that would be a good ballpark, at least something to get it going where they can start moving forward on some of these projects. And then when we have more information, we can revise that limit.
So right now, let me think through that for a second. Right now, in the current feed-in tariff structure, was there a cap, or how did we handle that situation?
There wasn't. It was just, like I said, they were signed a temporary feed-in tariff with the understanding that this is going to change, and they were agreeable to whatever it changed to. So there wasn't any. They already had the system
okay.
on there, and
okay.
I think they need to be subject to the same thing. We're only going to credit you back kilowatt hour for kilowatt hour. We're not going to over refund if you oversize.
I agree with that.
I think the majority of the customers, they're not, well, I'm sure we could have an outlier, but the majority aren't going to be overproducing. Like Maverick, they're talking about a 25 to 30 kilowatt array, and yet their energy bills, their demand charge far exceeds that. And so I think it's just kind of going to, take the edge off for them, but they won't be overproducing. But they're also adding battery, which that's going to really help their time of use rates, and it's going to help the power company as well. So I would hate to say, no, you can't build a large array when it could actually, when the whole thing could end up helping us.
Right.
assuming they use it during the peak.
Right.
And I guess my question would be, if we just put in only the language for the kilowatt hours, would there be concern of only putting that in? Because my concern with the demands is just tracking all the demands, new customers, those coming on. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering if we just use the same language that says we don't mandate this, we just say, hey, your cap is what your energy usage, and then we do the same 6-month piece. Does that work?
Probably works for most. I was just looking. I pulled up the elementary school to look at the. It'll hurt them because you want to talk demand or kilowatt hours. Let's see.
I'd be curious to see what both of them are.
Let's see. Probably the highest. Let's see. So in June of last year, they produced 57,320 kilowatt hours, and they only consumed 23,120. Less than half of. But it'd be okay. So here's the cumulative over the
year.
Over the year. And okay, so cumulative is they produced 407,720, and during that same time period, their usage was 364,480.
I see. So they are producing.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's what I start thinking about too when you're talking about size. And when if you go by demand, their highest demand throughout the year was 179 kW. Their highest produced was 287.
287.
So just to get a difference in demand and kilowatt hour usage.
Do we know if they're a year-round school?
No, it's a junior high, so they're
Junior
not.
high, they're not.
No, I'm sorry. It's elementary. But it's not year-round. Yeah,
not
I'd say they're
year-round.
not. That's why it's so low on their
I wonder if
usage.
I wonder if they sized it for as if it was year-round, and then because for June to be that low of consumption, that's just surprising. But it's probably because they're closed right then.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if they, for possibility, I was on the community council, so I'm saying this, is that they might have sized it for that.
I see.
It might be year round. Heritage was the 4th Key Street came on, but growth continues in May.
Right.
And if we did that by, like you said, kilowatt hours, they wouldn't be that far off.
No, they wouldn't. And I wonder how much of that is overproduction too, right? They, you tend to see 5 to 10% fluctuation in their models. So there could be 36 of that, which would get you right at 400,000. It could be just a really good solar year, and this year could be completely a terrible solar year, right? So. The other concern with demand is they're not even demand side correcting. You know what I mean? Because we got to have 2 meters, and we're not tying in to the demand side of that.
Right.
So I kind of I don't know how we'd handle that situation as far as overproducing, but I'm thinking if we were just to limit it at what their usage is.
What were their
kilowatt hours and still charge them the demand? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
like we're doing now.
Just keep it away from demand right now, because
What was their demand numbers again?
So the demand numbers, the highest they produced was almost 287 kW,
Kilowatts produced.
and then, like I say, their highest that they actually used was 179.
but so what I would say is I think that the demand that you would see there, what time, do you know what time of the day the 287 hit?
No idea.
Okay.
They're south facing, so I'm assuming it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But
Okay.
Wow, that's a big array.
So does that seem fair? You guys tell me what you think as far as if we were to just say that they could only offset their kilowatt hours, or is there still concern on demand?
I think they both get you going in the right direction. One reason why I may lean more towards the kilowatt hour is I'd be concerned that the demand consumption-wise and the solar demand may not match up at all. And so if you've got a large commercial customer for some reason who has a really high demand spike in the evening for some reason, and then you're putting on a solar array that doesn't match up at all, you end up just taxing the lines going and coming. And so that's one concern I have. Time of use would help you
I agree.
figure out how much they line up. But where we're at today, I don't know that you could assume that everyone's matching up their demand with the solar demand. But a kilowatt hour kind of accounts more over time and may help with that a bit. So I think there's pros and cons to either argument, but that's the way I would lean is kilowatt hour.
Okay. Patrick? thoughts?
No, just listening to Jordan, that's exactly what I was thinking, because it was like, okay, when is their spike? When's their usage happening? And is the solar offsetting that? Or is it, as Jordan was putting out, is it opposite? They're producing all this power, not using anything, and then when they need power, sun's gone down or what. It's a slippery slope, but the kilowatt hour seems to be more fair if that makes any sense whatsoever. Until we get, here's the whole problem, until we get time of use and can actually see the model of what's going on, we're just kind of trying to patch the boat blind.
Yep. I agree. Alan, your thoughts on that?
I like the kilowatt hour. I think that's, and it works for residential, it should work for commercial.
Say.
Okay.
I mean, that's what we're trading here is kilowatt hours,
Okay.
so.
John?
I think I could be persuaded to go kilowatt hours.
So I wrote down this this terminology Alan really likes, and so maybe I'll just try to put this together. If we were to put in here subject to change, because it sounds like it's all kind of contingent on time of day usage. So, and I know that we're really trying to notify people that this can change. So maybe it's subject to change. Right now it's 100% of the kilowatt hour usage with the exact same language as the residential. So if everyone's on board with that, I would entertain a motion to approve that language.
So just to clarify, we're talking about maximum system size would be based on the energy they would produce all year.
That's right.
Okay.
That's accurate.
Good with that?
Just
And there's no
practically
incentive
speaking-
for them to oversize.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, because it's going to be the same language. We have that 6 months that it, if they did get,
They overproduce it, they're forfeiting it.
that's accurate.
That's fair.
So from just kind of an administrative standpoint, do we have a way of estimating? So for example, we have a project that doesn't exist yet, so we won't have a year of usage to base this on. So we'd have to estimate what that usage will look like. What's your guys' comfort level on being able to?
I believe that would be up to the installer or whoever's designing the system. It'd be their guessing game as to
On
where
the
they're going to be,
solar side?
and they'd have to take that risk. Yeah.
How about on the power side, just the demand, the consumption of power? When
As
there's
far
a
as billing
developer that
coming
comes
in,
in, do
well,
we
they have to come
estimate
in
an
and-
annual usage?
They come in and give
give it
a load sheet, right?
That's not all accurate all the time.
It's an
So,
estimate.
Yeah,
at
it's
that
an
point.
estimate.
Yeah, and it's,
But you'd have to base the solar system size around probably that estimate then. If we don't have the year's usage and you're coming up with a cap, you'd be basing it on an estimate.
Well, like I said, I don't think we'd have to. The burden would be on them. You just say, this is what the rules are.
That's accurate.
Size your system
Yeah, if
accordingly.
they
So
oversize it.
knowing that,
And
yeah,
then
they
they
lose
lose.
out.
Fault
Yeah,
there.
they'd forfeit extra credit
Yeah.
anyway. I was just curious what we would use as the cap number.
Yeah, those, as Gary can attest, those load sheets aren't ever anywhere.
So in the case
near.
of an existing customer, or like an elementary school who's been around, you could use the most recent year and be fine.
Yeah,
And
comparable.
I think
to-
just to add to it, so just the two cases, right, is a new customer. And a new customer, what happens in like Kaysville, the elementary school, electrical engineer will put a load sheet together, and then they submit that load sheet to review, and then from that review, these guys size the infrastructure coming into the building based off of that load sheet. And then what the solar installer will do is they'll make assumptions of what that usage is. So that's why I think there's a possible swing here is they'll say, okay, is it a 12-hour day, 365-day facility? So I'm going to make the assumption that you're dead on, that they probably assumed and designed the system for future growth here of, maybe they're adding summer classes or those types of things. And so that would still be on the installer. So if these credits were to go away, essentially they would be kept to the community, right? They'd just be taken back at zero. So the installer would be the one that took the risk. On an existing system, that your home, anybody's home here, and then go commercial, right? How it would work is that it'd still be on the risk of that solar installer. So if John went in and said, I can give you 5 kW and offset 100% of your load, then I came in and said, well, I can give you need 10 kW, right? Then that would still be on the risk of the resident at that point to make the right decision. And I think that's where our metrics saying how do you properly size that system is crucial for all of the customers. But the city wouldn't take any risk on sizing or any of that stuff.
Yeah. So, but would the city deny, so for example, if we have a cap and it's in the rules and I come and I apply to the city to put solar on, someone in the city reviewing that and saying, no, this is higher than your load, so we're going to deny this, it's in the rules? Or is it just kind of, you put it out there and hope the customers just follow it?
Yeah, I think
Is there any kind of,
we don't right now. I mean, the way it is they have a cap. Plans go to the building department. They send them out to be looked at to make sure they're good. But we don't look at them and
we
say,
don't follow up
okay.
and actually make sure anyone's
because we
within
haven't
the
had
cap?
any stipulations on how many kilowatt hours they could produce. So
Well, it would become very apparent in the course of a year if their system is oversized, because you'd be looking at what they used versus what they produced. And I mean, you very quickly you could say, you oversized your system. So either take some panels off or keep producing, but let's do
Or
that.
install charging stations and tell all their employees, hey, free charging, because it's costing us anyway.
So is the idea behind a rule or a cap that we're putting in here just a guidance or a warning to customers? There's really no from what it sounds like, there's no one that's going to deny an application or call someone up and say, you need to take solar off your roof. It's just...
No, it's just
We
they
have it in
know
the
they know
city
they're not going
code
to
as
get
kind of
compensated for any overproduction.
That's
Right.
it.
That's
the financial.
There's the caveat right there.
Yeah.
You want to put a 100 kW system on your roof and you use 10 kW a year, then 90 kW is forfeited. Your choice.
The only thing that leads into is what's what we size the transformer at and what they have to pay as far as impact fees too. So, but there are other.
Right.
We haven't talked about that yet, but
That's right. That's right.
so the other thing, I don't know, are we done talking about that? Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
were you?
I was just going to approve it if.
Yeah, so the verbiage
can.
was that the system will be sized for KW usage.
KWH.
Kilowatt hour.
KWH.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's it. And it's subject to change.
Subject to change, yeah.
That's right. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the resident or the commercial cap per kilowatt hours. Again, it's subject to change, but they cannot exceed what they've produced in that year with the same language as residential cap.
I'll submit that motion.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so that now, they across the street can start moving ahead, correct?
Well, once we have that
Sure.
document written up and approved by the city council,
Right,
yeah,
right.
we'll have to, and there's also interconnection standards and all kinds of things that have to go along with the commercial too.
That's right.
We're going to have to, and a lot of that stuff I think we can probably do during the month. As long as everybody sees it and looks at it, so we don't have to wait a whole other month for one piece of it to happen and another month for another piece to happen.
What else is outstanding? I mean, this is the work item, right? So this is kind of, as far as interconnection.
Interconnection standards, site, like you said, how much, what the saturation on the transformer you're going to let them do. Are we going to stick with IEEE standards or?
And I think that.
And that's what John was.
Let's hold on the IEEE stuff because I know John's ready for that piece as well.
Okay.
But I think for what you're saying, I think I understand what you're saying is, I think the question is if an application is submitted, will the city do a load flow analysis to make sure that if a transformer needs to upgrade, who pays those costs for upgrade? Is that where you're headed?
Yeah. I submit that they pay all the costs.
I agree with that.
And it'd be easy once we decide at a certain level. You say 30% of their that transformer can only be or the solar size can only be 30%, capacity of the transformer, and then they
Okay.
have to pay for the upgrade, or or whatever. Like I said, I think that's what,
Okay.
like you were saying, that's what IEEE is, somewhere in that area. But we'll have to.
Okay. So I'm going to just write this down, and then we'll wait for John. And then if not, what we'll do is we'll circulate it for the impact fees. But just make sure everyone's on the same page and make sure we're all in agreement. What we're saying is the customer, when they submit the application the solar application, we'll make sure that the transformers and the lines feeding those transformers are sized correctly, and then what will happen is, if not, then we're proposing, after it passes a certain percentage, which is typically an IEEE standard, that we'll refer to, which is changing. I think it goes in effect in June. We'll refer to that. So which basically says is if we go past, I think it's 15, and it's going to go to 30%. So if it passes that, all those costs would go to that customer. Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the other thing before we move on to that, I don't know if you guys thought about when I talked to most of you last month about the hydro and that situation, how that's going to it's going to have to be in some separate category, because if you went off the size of the building, you could put one solar panel on there. It's about all they could.
The other complication to that is they're a co-generator, and they're going to have some type of a solar panel. If there's no system power, the inverter doesn't operate, so you have no production. The hydro, if your system goes down, they can still feed into the system if you don't put some type of protection system in there. So it's a completely different animal.
I believe, I'll have to verify that, but I believe it works the same way. If power goes out on the line side of the inverter, I think it shuts off the same way, but I'll have to verify with Gardner Engineering. But I believe that's what he told me before, because I had some issues asking about that, and I believe it works the same way. It's all run through an inverter, and that works the same. I believe it works the same way, where if it was line side, it shuts off just like the solar ones do. I believe. I'll make sure on that.
Okay.
And I kind of liked, I think in the notes, I can't remember who made the suggestion, but I think the best way may be to just treat it like a power purchase agreement, and then just have a separate contract, and then that way it's not muddying the waters of net metering or any of that. It's straight up, here's a power purchase agreement, it's done all the time. Was that you, Alan, that mentioned that?
That's kind of what I was thinking it was, Alan.
Yeah, it's a completely different animal, and I don't know that we want to come up with a rule that could be used to apply to whatever else comes along.
So what you're saying, Alan, is case by case. So this would be
Well,
handled
on this one,
completely
yeah.
separate.
I
It's
think
its
we
own
should.
animal. Yeah.
Because they're way overproducing for their usage, obviously.
Right.
And we need to make sure we get the right kind of protection in there and have some kind of an agreement. What kind of maintenance do they need to do on their protection scheme, and what are we buying this power? What rate do we buy it at? And it.
Yeah, and that's what I say. He's been mostly trying to get me to tell him, what kind of saturation we're going to let him do on the transformer, because he's trying to figure out the cost for these, for those guys, Hates Creek, and so because he got like a 10 kVA transformer out there now, so definitely going to have to upsize, but what,
I see. So we'll definitely review the capacity factor. I know John has some stuff, but then we'll send the IEEE out so we can figure that piece out. But let's make sure we're all on the same page. Are we all comfortable? I mean, from my viewpoint, I think it makes a lot of sense. Is if we just treat it just like all of our generation sources. It's not a net metered customer at that point. I would say that it's very similar to carbon-free power project, right? This is one of our generations. Here's the power purchase agreement. Here's what the shortfalls are. Here's what, all of these are. And, because it's on a different time, right? We could give them a time of day use, since they're gonna give us right in our peak, then we can, give them different rate structures. So are we all is there any hesitation to doing just a PPA with that piece?
I think that makes most sense.
No, because that's essentially what the guy is doing, is becoming a power supplier. The nice thing about him is he'll be able to, when does the water flow? He determines when it flows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he could
So
just say, okay,
definitely run during
at 6 o'clock, that's when I'm going to start generating. So it's very beneficial.
Yeah, if there's a way to give him an incentive to increase production over peak.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd be in favor of giving him a better rate over peak.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, because he can say he's going to do it, but we have no way until we get the AMI into, and that, like I said,
Right.
goes back to
True.
that time of use
True.
again.
Yeah.
But
But
that
yeah.
can all be outlined in the agreement. And then if you find out that he's not meeting his part of the agreement, then it's okay, terminated.
We could set up a time of use agreement with him. If you feed power during peak, it's going to be worth this much. If you feed in the middle of the night or in the middle of the day, then it's going to be this
Yeah,
much.
we can put that in there right now.
It would incentivize him to
But we won't be able
flow.
to, we won't know
Do
until we
do
get
you
AMI.
use Itron meters?
Yes.
You can put, forget what they call them.
The ERT.
The ERT, yes.
You can put the
Three
ERT in
different ERTs in there that you can pick the time of day. I mean, it's a cheap version of an AMI, but you can do that.
Right.
With
And
a,
Also, we could, we
Yeah,
could,
you could track it.
we could
tell
make
you.
that one of our first areas too, if we decide, you know what I mean? Because they want to do a test area first, to start out with, put the collectors in. And anyway, we could, move that to the top of the list too, in that area. So I don't know.
But what if we just made them install it and show you the calibration? Because I think most power purchase agreements just say, we'd still need a meter, I guess. Think through that for a second.
Yeah, we'd want our meter so we could
We'd want our own
get the
meter.
information,
Never mind.
especially the AMI coming. But we
Yeah,
want
we'd want our own meter. Never mind. He's going to bill off of his meter in a power purchase agreement, so he'll be required to put in his own meter anyway. So
Yeah.
we'll have their meter and our meter, right?
well, I think you need a production meter plus their usage meter, two separate things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which it
they're
is on
different.
this. This, like I say, it's
Yeah.
it's that little
Yeah,
house
it's-
on Second North.
Yeah,
that
all
I'm talking
their-
about by Hayes Creek, by the pond. It's a little teeny house with a little teeny meter basis. So yeah, it's just all completely separate. So they would have a production meter.
Okay.
So
Okay. How will that? The one thing that I think through is, will we pull the meter? Because we would be giving them power, or would they give us an invoice? So I'm assuming he's going to need a meter, so there'll be their usage meter,
right,
which is completely separate. Then we'll have our meter for verification. Then we need to require them to have, I'm thinking, to have a meter that they bill us off of. And then we just need to make sure that it's to a certain calibration.
or it'd be pretty much the same thing we have now. Obviously they hook in line side, and they'd have they'd be separate. That meter is kind of like we have on the elementary school now too. Usage meter and a production meter. We'll have to see I'm not sure what they're planning on, their end of as far as feeding the power into that building, but yeah, going back to Alan's point that, we do want them hooked, it needs to be hooked to our line, our side, so that if the power goes out, it shuts off.
We've
we
got
have
to
to
have
require
some
that
kind of protection
for that
there.
inverter, to be hooked to our line side, so good point.
You will definitely, my question still that we need to address with him would be, how do they plan to invoice us in a power purchase agreement? Because we can't give them the data from our meter to invoice us back, right? We don't want to go through that. So they'll need a bankable, so when I say that bankable, it needs to be revenue grade meter that they will have to use to invoice us.
Well, we just have our meter on there, right? And we just, with the power purchase agreement, you pay them so much for every kilowatt hour they produce, right? So I don't see whether it'd be different than what we're doing now. It just, the rate would be different, right? Am I thinking right?
Yeah,
We're
I'm
going to pay
understanding
them
what
so much for every kilowatt hour they produce, right? So much for every kilowatt hour. So it doesn't sound like it's any different to me than the feed-in tariff situation, you know, other than the rate and some technical stuff.
Okay. You
Isn't
can
it?
do it that way. Most power purchase agreements, when you're on them, the customer invoices you for the power. It kind of leaves the liability of if they're off our meters or off on us. If you have them do it, then you can require a calibration of their own meters. So most power purchase agreements that I see that are secondary, the customer puts in the meter. We would still have our verification meter, but it's usually they send an invoice, and then it's paid by Kaysville City. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know why it wouldn't work the same way. You know,
It's
same
fine.
basic setup as the power, you know, as the feed-in tariff. But
Yeah, that's fine.
then we maintain control of our meter and they have that information, and then we just pay them, right, for every
Right.
whatever that rate is.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Okay, so then the only thing holding that up, both of those up right now, is the capacity factor. Is there anything else commercial that we're missing?
Just like I said, the interconnection standards and writing up the agreements and all that stuff, you know, but. And I think I sent you guys, it was quite a while ago now, I sent you a copy of some interconnection standards that commercial, you know, that I've seen, you know, that I got from another city. So,
Okay.
you know, if we want to, you know, look
Yeah, I have a bunch of info on that too, so I'll try to circulate some of that stuff. Okay. Okay, anything else on the commercial? Okay, so let's move to the carbon-free power project.
Okay, let me get my stuff together. Sorry, I'm still. So I know we had UAMPS come in and talk to us about that carbon-free power project, and in fact, I just sent, while you guys were talking, I sent you UAMPS' response to Uranium One's questions, you know, or their propaganda. So anyway, you can look at that later. I'm sure it's the same kind of questions that, who was it you said sent, Heal or somebody sent the other stuff?
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
So anyway, I sent that to all of you guys, so hopefully you get that. So basically, what they were proposing before was, you know, for us to take 7.5 megawatts, and they base that on what we have in coal. We have in Hunter, we have, you know, over 5 megawatts at Hunter. We're going to lose San Juan, we have 1.5 megawatt, and then we're going to lose a Pleasant Valley wind contract before that comes online. So that's what they were going off of. But as I looked at that, and I decided that, from my point of view, we need to cut back on that. I told them I only wanted 1 megawatt of it.
So of the 7 megawatts that UAMPS is getting, we're only going to take 1? Is that?
Well, no, they wanted us to. They recommended last time that we take 7.5 megawatts. Okay.
That Kaysville City would.
That us, yeah, our portion was
Okay.
7.5 megawatts to replace those ones that are, you know, that are going to go out the coal plants and those things.
Okay.
But as I looked at that, looking at the way our capacity factor is, we're not utilizing or using all, you know, the energy we have from the Payson project, our big gas plant, which we have a big portion of that. You know, we have 22 megawatts of natural gas, and what's happening is we're most of the time not using, you know, a small portion of it, and so it's costing us a lot of money. So as I looked at that, it looks like we need to utilize that more kilowatt hours that we get out of that thing, that lower the costs, you know, are going to be on it. So I looked at that, and it looks like it'd be beneficial for us to only take, like I said, 1 megawatt of that just to stay in it, and that's not the final say either, because each year through the licensing period of the carbon-free power project, we have a chance each time to at each licensing period to either stay in, change our capacity, or get out of it. So for this first year, I don't know if you guys looked at the cost last time, but so this time the licensing period for from now until March of 2019, our cost share when we went down to just 1 megawatt is only $10,000. And it's all that is going to be reimbursable too. If it came to a point where there was a fatal flaw, something happened, all the UNS members decided they didn't want to do it, there's 100% cost reimbursement too if everybody decides to get out of it. So anyway, like I say, I think we need to utilize Payson. That's 50% of our our load is Payson. We need to utilize it more. It's costing us a lot of money each month when we're using just a little bit of it. So that's my recommendation, is that we scale that back, for this next licensing period, just to 1 megawatt of capacity of that, which puts us in at 0.1667% of the fully subscribed unit if it was subscribed at 600 megawatts. So, like I say, and also what's going to happen too, see the bonds and things are going to be paid off for Payson in around 2024 in that area. So that's also going to give us a nice cost reduction also. And so if we're utilizing that and that capacity factor comes up to where it should be, where we're using it, that the costs are going to actually come down, from what we're paying now. So that's my recommendation. From what I see now, that's what we need to do to be more efficient in the future. So instead of staying in the same position we are now, as we lose these resources, we can adjust what we're doing, and along with the integration of,
So Nebo is our peaker plant?
Well, that's kind of what they're using it as. They test market, they look at market, and then they look at what it costs to run it, and they run it, and that's basically what it's doing. Okay. I wish we could get all the cities, and I've been working on them to do the same thing, so that we're using that plant, more often, so it'd make that cost come way down on that.
How big is our share of IPP?
It's 0.739% now. It's going to 7.46. So with the reduction down to 840 megawatts, we're about a little over 6 megawatts, 6.3, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So and that's also for the future if we need it and if it's cost effective. The only one downside to all that is we're putting a lot of eggs in natural gas basket also. That's the only downside. Mm-hmm. We already have, there's no changing what we have in Payson, unless you sell capacity. But so that's the only downside. But with us being so long all the time now and not utilizing, that Payson, that cost has gone up and up and up. So.
Payson is natural gas.
Yes. Yep, natural gas. 150 megawatts total with both the units.
How much do we have?
We have 22 megawatts of it.
22?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me just go through these if I can. I just got this sheet and then just step through. So IPP we have, it says here 8.9 megs. Did it go down more than that?
Yeah, now we're with the new sizing, we're going to be around the 6.3
and that
megawatts. And
bonds are paid off, or?
No, they're going to be paid off in about 2022, so we'll have a whole 2 years to run without.
It's being converted from a coal plant
that's
to
the
a
one
gas-fired plant.
Passed last time, so that's going to natural gas.
So, and how long does that power purchase agreement go for? Just in the natural gas, how long?
The natural gas one, I believe it's it's a 30 or 40 year term, I believe, on the contract's probably 30 years.
And what's the rate? Do you know?
They don't know either. They're talking around the 6.5 cent range.
Okay. 6.5 cents, and we have 6.3, and it's going. We have it for another 30 years. You're thinking plus?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It has a layoff agreement attached to that. We don't have to take any of that power.
Okay.
LA will take it all, or California.
Okay, so we could basically not use any of that.
That's just your target. If we can go buy power cheaper than that, then we buy it cheaper than that. If we can't, then we call this back.
I get you.
And that's our only resource that we don't have to pay for if we're not using it. So
okay, that's a big win.
Yeah.
And so that's like you say, that's a good insurance policy for the future. So for capacity and.
Okay, and then the next one I have is the Colorado Storage Project.
Yeah.
And that's 1.7 megs, and
Yeah,
then we're through 2024. And do you know the rate on that?
That one's one of our cheaper ones that averaged about 3.5 cents.
Oh, wow.
And that's, well, and what we get out of that is contingent upon how much water, what kind of water year we have, because that's Colorado River Storage Project. So
is that like a pump storage, or what kind of power is that?
Flaming Gorge and Glen
Yeah, it's Flaming
Canyon.
Gorge.
Oh, okay.
Or actually, it comes out of Glen Canyon Dam, or out of Lake Powell.
So you have 6 years left on contract. What happens after? You can renew?
They're renewing the contracts. We've already signed some stuff now for that to happen. So
Okay.
So that one's not going anywhere.
Okay, and then Hunter?
Hunter
5.4?
Hunter is I got 5.4 megawatts of that. That is, the bonds have been paid off now for probably, it's been about 5 years now.
Okay.
And that's our next cheapest resource after CRSP. We're in the high 3 cents to 4 cent range on that one.
Okay.
And that's about a quarter of our load most of the time too, that 5.4 megawatts. And that is a good, we're hoping that lasts a long time. So
That's a coal plant.
that's a
though,
coal plant.
that Rocky Mountain operates.
Yes.
And what do you guess its life expectancy is?
They're talking, we hope it goes into the 2025 to 2030 time range. And that's the one I was saying that, as that drops off, then we can utilize the Payson project more. Because, it's inevitable, we'll definitely lose that one. But like I say, at that price, I hope it keeps running for a long time. So.
Okay. And then San Juan?
San Juan, we have 1.5 megawatts of that, and that is going to be gone in 2028. So I think it's got 3 more years to go.
Okay.
And that's good. We don't have much of that, and that's another coal plant.
4 cents roughly?
No, that one's. It depends. Like I say, there's an order of which ones they sell first too. So you get some mixed numbers in there with if you're selling, costs you 7 cents to produce it, and then you're selling it for 2 cents.
I see.
In the pool. Anyway,
Okay.
So that one's averages probably 8 to 9 cents a kilowatt hour. San Juan does.
Okay. And then PV Wind, 2028, we have 3 megs. What's that pricing?
That one's pretty steady in the 7 cent range. Depend, like I say, that's all contingent upon capacity factor of the wind too. So.
And then Nebo, we've got 22 megs, and that's paid off in 2026, and then life expectancy.
Actually, yeah, I think sooner than that. I think 2024, I believe, is the.
So that one's natural gas, and then what's the expectancy there? 30 plus? Is that kind of same time frame, or do you know? Nebo.
Yeah, we hope it keeps. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on what the group decides as far as keeping the maintenance up and keeping it going. But we're hoping that lasts at least another 20 years.
Okay. And what's the rate?
It's all over the place depending on the month. Because sometimes it's 8 cents, sometimes it's 13, 14, 15 cents.
Oh, wow.
That's why I say that capacity factor killing us on that.
I get you.
The UAMPS meeting that was last week or the week before in St. George, they did a really neat history of all the power plants that UAMPS has owned and operated, and it was really, really interesting to see the history of it and what they've got and some of the deals they got and some of the mistakes they made. And but they just went through all of the plants, and it was a really neat presentation.
Yeah, and I think
that Jackie did.
Yeah, and Jackie did it. I think she presented us last year sometime too, right? I could resend that all to you guys too if you want to know. Talks about each power plant and life expectancy and the size of it and all that stuff. I saw that again today. I could resend that to you guys if you'd like to refresh your memories on that.
She was saying, I took some notes, and she was saying the Nebo plant will break even in 2028. That's when the ROI will happen. So I guess the bonds will be paid for by then. So as long as it can stay open at least that long, and then everything else is gravy
Yeah,
after that.
exactly.
Okay. Horseview. We've got
Horse Butte's
6
yeah,
megs.
that's the wind project that's in Idaho Falls. We have 6 megawatts of that.
And that goes 2032. And what's the price on that?
It's all over the place. Every month's different because of the wind capacity, but in the 8 cent range.
Okay. And then Vail.
Bale, we just have 800 kW, so less than a megawatt of that. And the pricing on that is around 6.5, 7 cents. That depends. That's like I say, they're all contingent upon capacity factor. You know, if that pump station doesn't run, then it doesn't run. You know, so like I say, it's different every month depending on the capacity factor.
Okay. And then we have solar of 1 meg, right, roughly?
Yeah, we're about one. I have to look at it again. We're about 1.3,
1.3.
somewhere in there. Yeah.
Okay. And then we've got Payson. And how much do we have of Payson again?
That's Nebo's Payson. Sorry, they're both the same thing. They just call them
Okay.
2 different names. So
Okay. Okay.
it's in Payson, but it's the Nebo project, so it gets called Payson project all the time.
So right now, just adding up, we've got 6,317. I'm just looking at capacity here, and I'm gonna, Alan, you're gonna have to help me definitely understand this, how this all works. But you know, right now our peak load is 40, right? Is that we typically
46 last year.
46. So if we've got 6.3 plus
Should be around the
1.7
52, 53 range.
plus 5.4 plus 1.5 plus 3 plus 22 plus 6 plus 0.84 plus 1.3. So I got 48. Does that seem right?
That's
Am I
right.
right?
We were about 50, 54 before we lost half our capacity in IPP.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can subtract that 6 because you're not calling any of that back, are you?
Not right now. We can, but we haven't the last few years.
So how are you covering your peak? Are you buying off through UAMPS off
Yeah.
the market?
Yep.
So maybe to help us, I mean, I've never looked at that and said, hey, you know, what is a good rule of thumb of, you know, what coverage do we want to keep above our peak? I mean, right now, if you subtract the 6 that you're saying,
42.
we're at 42.
And that's all. That is contingent on all of them running at capacity,
Right.
which wind and stuff is rare. And like any
San
plant.
Juan's a bit rare lately too.
Yeah. I'll be glad when that one's gone.
It comes and goes quite frequently.
Yeah.
And we definitely, we have in our portfolio, we have, you know, 30 of or 28 of the 46 roughly is natural gas. So how do you help me understand? I have no idea how this works, by the way.
Yeah.
As far as what you
looking
want
at
to do.
looking at, like I say, by every 15 minutes, as far as what you're using and what was being produced, you'd like to stay about in the 80% range most of the time, because the hardest problem is that our winter peak is 21,
Right.
and the summer peak, you know, for 1 month is 46. So you don't want to be paying for 46 12 months out of the year when you only use it for 3 short times during the summer, you know, for 3 months.
So what was the winter peak?
Winter peak's about 21.
21. Wow.
We have a big swing.
That's
huge.
a huge swing.
And that's the problem. Yeah, in the summertime when Payson's running, you know, we're using all of it, then the costs come down. But when we're using, you know, a tiny portion of it because we have all these other resources that we're using, then like I said, that capacity factor goes way down and its costs go way up.
So is it beneficial? I seen Rocky Mountain Power runs a reverse. They've got like this pilot that they're doing. That as long as it's not on peak, and this is probably coming with time of day, right? they do a reverse, as long as you're not on peak, it's like 3 cents for everybody, just to try to push those peaks up. Is that something we want to look at? I mean, you know, if we've got a 21 to 40, we're basically selling what you're saying, right? Is you're selling that 20 megs roughly at whatever people will pay you, right? At that point.
Yeah, it depends if it's run. Like I say, they don't run it if it's not, you know, if everybody's not using it, it's not cost effective. It's
Some
cheaper
of
in
them
the market.
you can back down a little bit. The IPP California is trying to do that with a coal plant. It does not work very well.
Right.
You can't fluctuate that very much.
Yeah, that's running down in the
Nebo,
40,
though,
50% power factor.
fluctuate
for now.
some. That's the gas turbines have that ability. The water, there's a little bit of that. You can call it back a little more during the day. It does have some flexibility in the CRSP, but it's not a huge chunk of our.
Yeah, it's a small portion. I wish we had more of that. But.
And it'll only vary about 8. You can only back it down to about 80% or something like that. I'm not.
Yeah,
sure
they're not
what it
going
is.
to. They're talking about not doing so many high water releases this year too, so that'll help us
Yeah.
keep it more stable.
But most of in the wind and solar, you take it when you get it.
Yeah, so we've got, this is kind of an interesting one. So we've got 1.7 plus of hydro. We have 3 of wind.
I can send you some charts too that Kelton down there at UAMPS does these great graphs and charts that shows the load in each resource, and you know how you show you how much it fluctuates and stuff too. So
They're
13%.
trying to sell this whatever we're calling the new Scout plant.
CFPP.
Carbon-free
Yeah,
project.
as being able to ramp up and down,
Yes.
which it can to a greater extent than a lot of other things, but the more you ramp it, the more your cost per kilowatt hour goes up. Because now you have fewer kilowatt hours because we're backing it down. So
Yeah,
it's like the Nebo. It depends on how much you're running it. The rate goes down the more you run it.
Right. Yep.
But
That's one of
Doug's
the-
trying to sell both sides of that.
Yeah,
issue, and
but
you
that is
can't
that is a benefit.
You can't have both.
Yeah, it's going to cost more. Yeah, but that benefit is, you know, trying to follow the solar curve, which they said it follows the wind. You know, they've modeled it up there, and
they
it follows
can
the wind
actually
really well.
ramp it fairly well for
Yeah.
a nuclear plant. But if you're ramping it, you have fewer kilowatt hours, and your kilowatt hour rate will be higher.
Yeah, that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
The more kilowatt hours you have, the less
He
it costs.
doesn't talk about that, though. When he's talking kilowatt hours, he's talking a block, base-loaded block of kilowatt hours.
Yeah.
But then he tells you, but it can follow your wind and your solar, and, okay, but then your price per kilowatt hour is going up.
Yeah, but yeah, that's just
And he,
that helps.
anyway, just a heads up when Doug's talking.
One of the few things that can follow though. That's the trick.
Okay. So, do we, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have any, do we have any renewable,
Any what?
like renewable portfolio standards that we have to hit, or we mandated?
We're supposed to have. We'll have to look back at the state statute. It was if it was economically feasible. I think it was 2020 or by 2025 it was 25%.
Okay.
And we're on it. On the average, yeah, a lot of months we're over that. Some months we're under it, like I say, depending on our wind production.
Okay. We need how many, what was the percent,
I
25?
have to look at it for sure. My memory serves me right. It was around 25%. They'd like you to have, but like I say, it's not a hard and fast rule because it says if it's economically feasible.
Okay. Okay.
It's a voluntary kind of.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah, it's just
penalty associated.
I think it's a requirement for investor-owned utilities, but not for public power.
Yeah, it's suggested
It would
amount.
probably be good to try and stay at least keep that in mind and try and stay close to it. But
Yeah, that's what we've tried to do with the wind, and then the VAO also qualifies for that too.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah.
You know, it'd be really neat if we had on our Kaysville webpage, the power page, showing what % of our power is renewable, and kind of brag that up a bit, and show, you know, here's the breakdown of our sources: this much coal, this much natural gas, and maybe we'll have to update that every year or so. But I think that would just be a really neat feature to have in the webpage, that people could go and go, oh, our city's already 35% renewable, or whatever the number is.
Yeah, we'd have to update that number every month in the renewable part, but
Yeah.
but yeah, no,
well,
we
you
could do
could just do an annual total.
yeah, an average over the whole
For
year.
this year, this
Right,
is
we say
where we
last
were.
year, or yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep track of all that information, so I have all that. So yeah,
Okay.
that would be good.
Okay. Alan, I'm going to defer to you and then let everyone else kind of fill in. What is your thoughts? I mean, there's the charts. I know. I'll let you kind of take point.
Well, we're short resources, but you got to be careful how much base load resource you buy. Another option is to, you can go buy some resources by the month over your summer peak and cover, you know, go buy 5 megawatts or 10 megawatts of just certain months.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Along with that, using that base to cover, you know, get our that base for pacing, but yeah, then buy a 5-year product that you can get, you know, for those summer months.
Yeah. And they're fairly reasonable, but you've got to have a good credit rating to get them, and I don't know where the city's
No, yeah,
at
we'd be
with
fine
it.
with that, but the only game you play there, like, you know, is that, you know, you have a 5-year contract, but then the next 5 years, depending on prices, it could be out of sight or it could be cheap, you know, but
Yeah, and you can
That's
get
the hard
caught.
part.
We need to have a long-term plan, but we know most of this coal's going away fairly short-term, and also the wind contracts. One of the wind contracts is
the PV
fairly short.
The PV is in, what was it?
2028.
2028, but,
10 years.
and that's only, yeah, that's, well, 3 megawatts or whatever there's, but.
Jackie was saying in her presentation that San Juan will shut down in 2022, and maybe could go longer if the current administration changed things drastically, but it's kind of looking like it would be 2022.
Yes.
Which isn't that far away. And
No, we'll be
it's
happy
almo-
when that one's
you know,
gone.
It's like that's 1.5 megawatts that would go away for us, and a megawatt of nuclear. You know, it kind of is like this goes away just in time for the nuclear to come on.
Not quite in time. The nuclear doesn't come on until 26.
Well, like I say, I don't want it to. You know, like I say, I want that to be gone. You know, and then when Hunter goes, I want it to be gone. I want us to use Nebo more. I want those to be gone so that we're not stuck with all this high cost.
So you guys want to hear a story, or may I tell a story? I should say. So I went to the NewScale presentation last year, and I was really skeptical of nuclear power. I was just like, what are we wasting our time doing this? We don't want another Fukushima, but in Idaho this time. And but I go to the presentation, and I was just really impressed with the small scale reactor idea. So a normal nuclear plant, it's this humongous facility. They have to have, like, all the contractors are trained and have clearances, and because they're dealing with nuclear material, and the whole thing is just really complicated. And every nuclear plant that's been done in the past is custom built and custom approval, and just billions of dollars and tons of delays, and really complicated. And if anything goes wrong, you're just really out a lot of money. And California is still paying the price for funding a nuclear plant that never happened, and that's partially why their power is so expensive, is they're still trying to pay off that bond. But then here comes the NewScale idea, this small modular reactor. If you're into Star Trek, it looks exactly like the warp core of the Voyager. It's just this this big thing that comes in on a giant semi-truck. So the whole facility, there's nothing dangerous or radioactive. It's just concrete and steel. It's a big building that they build, and regular contractors can come in. They don't need clearances. They're just doing a normal construction job. And then once that's all done, then the mass-produced small modular reactors that are, the design is fixed and is reproduced for every small modular reactor. It's gotten approval, and then it can just go in at one of these sites, and they just load up the site up to 12 reactors, I believe.
Yes.
And they can drop them in. Each one of them is 50 megawatts, and they go 2 years at a time between fuel changeouts. They could actually go 4 years, but they're shooting for 2 years right now. And then they take one down while the other 11 or whatever are still running. They take 2 weeks to change the fuel rods out of it, drop it back in, it's back up in business. And so you're not taking a gigawatt of power off the grid for weeks at a time. You're just taking 50 megawatts.
Months at a time.
For months at a time,
regular refueling is a massive
it's
operation.
really expensive, and so I just really like the idea. Maybe because it looks like the warp core. That was just really cool in its own self. But and then if, say, humanity, that show, Life After People, what if we all just disappeared? What happens to this? Well, eventually the cooling pond's going to evaporate. This, by default, in the default position, the rods come out, and there's enough thermal mass here that it's only it generates about a megawatt of heat when the rods are in their off position, and there's enough thermal mass that it will not melt down. It'll just exist that way for.
By the time the water evaporates, it can air cool the rest of the way down.
Correct. So it can air cool for eternity.
Yeah, there's no external pumps required, no external water source.
So it's extremely
safe.
safe.
Shut down.
Correct. So it was a really safe design. My only hang up is it takes a ton of water to do the process. You're taking heat from this thing, and it's actually like 140 megawatts of heat, and you end up getting, that's the maximum, but you end up getting 50 megawatts of electricity, but you have all this heat that you have to transfer to something, and they use water, and so you have to have, it's like 500 gallons a second just of water. So it's a river that's going in and out, and so some farmer's field is going to use warm water. That's really what it comes down to. But that source of water would be needed, and that's
and some of the water's lost through evaporation as it's turned into turbines.
Correct. Yep, there would be lost through the steam process.
It'll just be watering sagebrush out there. Have you been there?
We should go on a field trip sometime. I would love to go out to Atomic City. It's like west of Idaho Falls, I think.
Yeah, we went there last year.
Yeah. So as a solar advocate, I'm kind of on board with with a megawatt of nuclear. That's like 2% of our needs. That's a small risk to take. Let's diversify our portfolio. I say let's, and you think about it, in 200 years, humanity is going to be going to like really cool, like cold, taking any kind of matter and turning it into energy. Let's figure that out. Let's keep going down this path so we learn this and get some experience in nuclear, and not just the radioactive ones, but every type of matter. So I'm on board with a megawatt of nuclear. I think that's a small risk. I would love if I was king, I would say let's do solar and batteries and just ditch everything else. But given the situation, I'd say let's diversify a little bit and add a megawatt of nuclear.
We do have the opportunity about a year from now to get out completely again if we want to.
Yep.
And this is not
each year through this licensing project or licensing period. Yeah, we have an opportunity to get out. further you get into it, obviously the more expensive it gets. But
And 1 megawatt is a pretty minimal risk.
that's what, that's kind of like I said.
Yeah,
I think
7,
we'd
I'd
stay
be,
in it.
7's kind of high, but 1, it's like, yeah, that sounds good.
Well, it keeps our foot in the door. We can probably add to it some, but
Yeah.
the biggest issue here is the UAMPS group doesn't need 600 megawatts of power.
Right. They're gonna
Doug's
just-
got to find some partners.
Yep. And that's one of the fatal flaws of it. If we don't get 600 megawatts, it's not going to be cost effective.
Yeah.
It needs to be fully subscribed.
Yeah.
So, and like I say, there's a certain timing, like I say, where everything's 100% reimbursable. The Department of Energy is funding 50% of the project, and then NuScale, which is the ones building the reactors, are flitting 25% too. So we're just in for 25% of the cost.
Which goes to the letter we got from whoever it was, Uranium Watch and HEAL. I don't know what their credentials are, but if the federal government is going to back this, they've done all the review they would on any other nuclear plant. And if they think it's a good idea and they're willing to put money into it, I give that a little more.
And they actually, Department of Energy wants to take the first 2 reactors. They want to use the power from those first 2 reactors for a certain amount of time. So that's how invested they are in making this happen.
Well, they were saying we shouldn't just listen to the people that are selling this. Well, the government isn't selling it. The government is participating because they think it's a good idea. Great technology and safe. Everybody's worried about nuclear. All the nuclear accidents have been because they couldn't cool the reactors, those giant reactors, because of all the water that they have to pump in and all those things. But like I say, these can self-cool. They don't need an operator even there if something happens. They self-cool.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't know how many of you read the letters we received from them, but this came off of NuScale's website today. It was posted yesterday talking about the approval that they're getting from the government and a $40 million investment from the government. So if you're going to read these letters, follow up with check the NuScale website.
And I just sent you guys UAMP's response to that Uranium 1 letter, so you should all have that in your email.
Okay. So, as far as the response and them reaching out, would it be fair to say that I'm kind of in the same, just to be clear, I think I'm in the same, it's a megawatt, it's really hardly anything, very little risk, and I kind of feel the same way of if in a year we decide to back out, we're out $10,000. That's in my mind, that's a no-brainer.
Right.
But would it be fair to say that we want these people, the Hill Utah people, to come in and present to us, or do you feel like that's opening another can of worms? We just move on, or
I'm okay with moving on.
Okay.
I mean, we've seen, I've read their letters, and I have been up to see the NuScale whole process up in Corvallis, and it's pretty impressive.
Okay. Anybody thoughts on that? I know that there's going to follow up with a call, and so I just want to make sure if they call me, I want to know what to
they're
tell
always
them.
welcome to participate in public comments as well if they want to come in.
Okay. So I'll just open that up if everyone's okay with
if you're getting
that.
questions, send them directly to UAMPS too.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. So I think are you hoping for approval
Yes,
here?
they would like, you guys make a recommendation, vote on it, and then then we take it to council. They're trying to get everybody to get it done as soon as possible.
I'll make a recommendation that we proceed with a 1 megawatt share in this.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. The one thing I would add to, I've been involved in looking at some other power purchase agreements, and if we're short on resource, there are all kinds of crazy deals going right now with base load factors. I don't know, maybe just throw it out there. I've seen a lot of geo with base load that's pretty cost effective. I don't know.
And that's the problem. We don't need any base right now. We need peak.
Yeah,
we
it's
need
a-
peaking.
Okay.
You know, since we're talking about a megawatt of nuclear, what if we got a megawatt of battery? Just
Are they there yet?
stuck it in one of our substations. That would be 5 of the Tesla power packs. They're 210 kilowatt hours apiece. And say we had 5 megawatt hours. And each one has an inverter that's 250,000 watt inverter. So 4 of them could do a megawatt of power, but 5 of them would be a megawatt hour. And you know they're not cheap. They're 65,000 a piece. So what is that really quick here? 5,000 times 5. So that'd be 325,000 for a megawatt hour. But that's like we could charge it up when power is dirt cheap, and then dispatch it when it's real expensive. And there's just as a R&D project for Kaysville.
How much was it, John, total, did you say?
They're about $65,000 one of these modules. So for 5 of them would be 325,000.
That's cheap.
Does that come with inverters and everything too?
Yeah.
Yep,
that's
inverter
the
built in.
unit.
Is it?
So all
Is
you
it-
do is you'd find like on the west substation, you could get a patch of area, put those 5 banks in, let the substation charge them when it's dirt cheap power, and then when there's peak, you just discharge them.
What size are they? What do you know? What kind of area it
Well,
takes?
No, they're not very big at
They're
all.
like a
Those
they're
aren't?
like a
They're
refrigerator.
like a Volkswagen on its end.
Yeah,
It's not big.
What's the life expectancy of them? Do you know? I guess I know it depends on usage and stuff.
I have to look up on the Tesla website, but I think they're promising like. I thought I remember like infinite warranty, like they were guaranteeing it for life.
No.
Not Tesla, no.
No.
It's based on cycles. So
Right.
it depends on your dispatch mechanisms. But it's, depending on technologies, 8,000 to 10,000, which warranted is usually right around 12 years, and unwarranted is right around 21 life expectancy.
So 8,000.
It would probably be something to look at. We're
365.
dispatching a lot of batteries
like
right
22
now.
years.
You think the technology's there? I keep waiting for the next. Thinking there's got to be something better.
It will only get better.
I
is
know,
the
that's-
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and is this a utility grade
Yeah.
Yes.
product?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Tesla
Distribution grade.
is in, is it Edison Power? They're building
Yeah,
a
they're-
huge thing with Edison Power right now,
I-
using these batteries.
I'm all for it. I think
And
we
Edison's
should.
already
I think
approved.
we should start doing some of that too.
If you can get me your 87, so what I need I'm happy to run the economics. I do it all day long, right? And if you get me the 8760 data, so basically that's just our hourly data from Kaysville. I think we probably have it.
Yeah, we have it. It's a little outdated, a year old, but it probably hasn't changed a lot. It's in our model.
I'm happy to just send it out and show you what it would look like. We
I
take
think
that, we run that, and we could see what it would produce. The piece that you'd have to stack it with is you'd no question have to stack it with solar. So you'd have to do, the thing that the misperception of batteries is they don't actually produce any power, right? They store power.
Right.
And that's it. And so arbitrage works really well where you may take in the evening and then, put it out at a different time of day. But because of some of the way that the federal tax credit works is, if you're able to offset or charge your battery from 100% renewable, then you're able to stack 30% tax credit on top of that. And so it's beneficial to...
Municipalities would get that too?
Municipalities are not, but it would be a power purchase agreement is how you'd have to structure that deal.
Well, we have a lot of renewables, so
Right.
About a megawatt.
If you're buying Nebo power that we're selling at a loss,
Yeah, that's
You can
exactly,
use that.
that's what I want to get that, yeah, capacity factor, and that would help it, like you said.
Yeah.
Then help shave our peak too, and we could, if it worked out good, we can add some more megawatts of it too, spread it out, other substations.
Pretty easy to
We
do.
could
And
line
it's-
the perimeter of every substation. We have got a lot of area.
You can double stack, so you can go, they come in all kinds of things, but you can double stack them. So you can go 40 feet by 20 feet tall. We're doing one right now that's like that, so that's.
Does it have to have a cement pad, or what are they?
Yeah, they're,
Yeah.
a 40-foot container weighs 50,000 pounds, so your pad's about a foot deep. For it, it's not a big deal at all. As far as concrete, infrastructure is easy.
So what is their failure mode?
What do you mean?
What's your potential? Or do these burn, blow up?
I think
If you have a non-passive failure, what do you get?
So you definitely have some very low-grade lithium out there that is very bad, but there's also some really high-name manufacturers out there that would be completely fine. Like literally, some of the bigger ones, big name brands, LG, Samsung. Those are the main name brands that are out there that people are using, and they have studies. I mean, I could share you.
Are they in their own self-contained, you don't have to build a building around
Yeah.
them or put any fire protection or anything, right?
Yeah, each module is in a big contained unit, and there's like 14 drawers of these modules. It's actually the residential power wall module, I believe. It's a 14 kilowatt hour module, and then there's several drawers of those, and each one is thermally managed. So if it's heat and cold, that's just kept at room temperature. So the batteries last a long time, and every module is isolated from the other module. So the inverter on them, I believe it's a 250 kilowatt three-phase inverter. I think it's 480 volt three-phase. So if it's at the distribution, you would have to step that up to the distribution level and then
That's accurate.
out to there. So
yeah, I'm
So you'd have to know transformer to step it up to 12,470.
yeah, so 483 phase to 12.4 kilovolts.
The bigger savings that I think we should look at, and I think this is just in general of where the market's heading, right, is what you can do with it is you can do, so first of all, the benefit is it's dynamically adjustable real time. So you can go 0 to 100 instantaneous. I think it's like 3 milliseconds, right? It's generator response time. The capacity factor is amazing. You can use it for dynamic power factor correction. So if we looked at your bills and we found that we're getting hit with power factor from Kaysville and those types of things, and at different times you can adjust your power factor. The other piece is if you have voltage sags or issues on the lines. When we get the reliability study in, you can actually use and deploy those in key areas so that you don't have to upgrade certain areas. So it really helps. If we have somewhere that's limited in generation, even we can bring some of this stuff in. So we're deploying a lot of battery storage right now, just being honest, and it's pretty effective.
So are they backlogged on those?
Yeah, if you order a battery today, you're not getting a battery till, large scale, the scale we're talking, we're not getting it till Q1 of 2019, for sure.
So they're about 52-week lead time.
Yeah. Yep. Small scale though, homes or, small commercial, you're 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Go to Home Depot and buy a Tesla Powerwall.
Yeah, you can get them. So, so with that, I think let's go into the backfeed capacity, unless there's anything else on that. So I'll take that action. I'll put, and I'll include you, John, and Jordan. You seem interested. I'll kind of distribute it. If anyone wants to get together, Alan, Patrick, just let me know. I know one at a time, right? We got some rules to follow. So, but yeah, I'll do my best to include everyone on that. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to you, John, and let you go through the backfeed capacity.
Okay, thank you. So this was taken from a presentation that it was UAMPS invited a couple of gentlemen from the Regulatory Assistance Project, and this was done over last year, over the summer. We met here one time, we met in Salt Lake one time, we met in Provo one time. Well, this one was I believe it was the Provo one, but it was April of last year. And I apologize, I didn't realize we were going to print out the whole thing, but I went ahead and printed out just a few key slides. So I'm going to, everyone's been provided the full slides here in paper, so you can look at those if you'd like. But I'm just going to cover about 12 of this was a 4-hour presentation, so I'm going to give you the 7-minute version, 6-minute version. So, and really it was talking about Hawaii's example. So Hawaii, their main power source is oil, diesel, and they have to import everything just to make their power, and as such, their electricity is really expensive. And because their electricity is so expensive, their demand for solar happened 10 years before anyone else. Solar became cost-effective 10 years before it became cost-effective anywhere else, at least especially like here in Utah. And solar in Utah is actually really, really high demand. This first chart, in 2016, solar was actually the second highest state, according to this slide, behind California. Now Hawaii, they have some really ambitious renewable energy goals. They want to be, they're currently 15% renewable. They want to be 30% by 2020, 40 by 2030, and they want to be 100% renewable by 2045 with solar, wind, geothermal, and battery storage. And they also had a pumped hydro storage project as well. Now, this fourth slide on the first page here, circuit limits raised dramatically. This is talking about the substation, not the substation, the distribution transformer. So originally, when you have no good way to measure to know for sure how much power is being backfed or through a transformer, they use this really conservative rule of thumb. It's an IEEE rule where it says you shall have only 15% of your peak transformer capacity with solar. And so they were going with this very conservative number for the first few years, but they were hitting a wall on that, but people were still installing solar, and they were realizing these transformers, they weren't overheating. They weren't having an issue with backfeeding 15% of the peak, because really, in the Hawaii example, they're running their air conditioners in the middle of the day when the solar is running, and so their backfeed wasn't that high. So they thought, well, let's open up the limit here. Let's go. In 2011, they said we'll allow 85% of minimum daytime load. So whatever the load is of the pulling from the distribution transformer, we'll allow 85% of that to be backfed. And that didn't cause any problems. And so they raised it again 2 years later to 100%. And then later that year, they raised it up another 25%. And then in 2015, they raised it to 250% of minimum daytime load. And their logic was, if they're pulling so much from the grid, then 100% could be met by the solar and cancel that out, and effectively nothing is being sent or backfed. It's all being consumed on site. And then you could backfeed another 100% beyond that back to the grid. And this is the minimum daytime load, so it's not even the peak of the transformer. So they're able to backfeed up to 250% of minimum daytime load. And on the second page, first slide, some of their circuits on the, I believe this was Maui, some of them actually exceeded that, but were still within operating tolerances. And let's see, so the next slide on the top right, tracking level, this was actually the first time that a substation backfed. They had so much solar, this was August of 2013, their substation backfed just for a few hours that day. And there was 4 substations on the island, and one of them was backfeeding, and the other 3 were not. So that substation backfed the others, and it worked. It still worked. Now, if all 4 of them were backfeeding, then you have a problem, because then now you're going to have voltage spikes. So they started looking at solar penetration as with minimal solar penetration, which they defined as 1 to 2%. Basically, there's no problems at all. It's just kind of in the noise. Medium saturation, which they defined up to, I believe it was 10 to 11%. Minimum, you had started having some issues at the distribution transformer, but no problems at the substation. But at high saturations, you would start backfeeding at the substation level, and you would start requiring active control of voltages and even smart inverters that they could tell to throttle back. And on the third page, whenever you invert DC to AC, you have the opportunity to create any voltage or waveform that is desirable to the grid. So kind of like with the battery storage idea is if you're too reactive, you can create an inductive wave and cancel that power, correct that power factor. If your frequency is dipping, you can adjust that. If your voltage is dipping, you can adjust that. And so that's kind of a neat opportunity that's available. So moving beyond the rule of thumb of the IEEE's 15%, they used some a distribution system planning module, or I guess it's the same as a load flow analysis. They call it OpenDSS, and they showed an example of this software that utilities can download and play with and look at. And if you look at the bottom left slide, the total output hosting capacity map, you can actually draw a map of your utility and show load flow analysis based on solar production and power consumption. And you'd be able to see at a glance which neighborhoods have the issues. And in this example, most of the neighborhoods are fine, but there's a couple that are red. If a customer in one of the red neighborhoods says, "Hey, I want to add solar," we'd say, "Well, nope, I think we're maxed out there. I'm sorry, you can't, unless you do battery storage and don't backfeed a single electron." And then they gave some examples of cities that do this distribution system planning modules. Pepco, a utility in the DC area, they had one online that you can actually go and look at and see their hosting capacity maps. So that's kind of the takeaway of this presentation was if we want to move beyond the rule of thumb, we can try this OpenDSS software and see how that we can better analyze our grid and see where the problem areas really are. And then we can have more information and tell people, okay, we're going to have to update this distribution transformer and it's going to cost this much. And so we'll be able to predict where the problems would be. So, and that's the 4-hour presentation in 5 minutes, I guess.
So you'd have to have the AMI to make that work, right?
Yes, we would need AMI to make that work.
And my question is, everything I've ever read says, talking about circuit-wide, that's why they hold it to 15%. It causes problems with the relays. at the substation and islanding are different problems too. So how did that? I wonder how that
Yeah,
worked in Hawaii.
I don't know. They also talked about a fault that happened. One of the gas turbines tripped, and it was like 5 megawatts or some big turbine went off the line, and there was a quick dip in frequency as it spun down, and the solar, all the inverters were like, oh, the grid's going down, and they tripped because they don't want to backfeed when they shouldn't, and now you had megawatts of solar go down the exact same time that a turbine went down, and it was a big problem. And so the smarter inverters now, they actually sense problems like this. They'll actually run for longer before tripping, so that if you have a power dip, they won't cause the problem to get worse by tripping. They'll keep running. They won't run if the grid totally goes down. They wouldn't keep running, but they would keep running to keep catastrophic failures from happening, cascading failures from happening.
So say there'd have to be a lot of coordination with the relay at the substation, because it has settings and things on it, where it sees, the cycles change, whatever it shuts off to up for protections. Anyway, it just seems like there's a lot of things we'd have to.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions I have about. I would love to. Next time I go to Hawaii, I have to take a tour there.
So I have some questions for you.
Okay.
Just to see if we can figure it out, because they're switching. They're switching between two metrics that I don't understand. Right? They're saying 15% of peak, and then they're switching to minimum daytime load, which to me, I don't know what the difference is. To handle the 15% peak, usually what a utility will require is they'll require a grounding transformer for the relay tripping settings. So when we're looking at the interconnection, that's what we need. That's usually the requirement is for most utilities. That is also in that IEEE, is they require the grounding transformer, and that's basically to give you a ground from your substation all the way back to the solar array, and that'll trip the solar array off. So that's in the IEEE, but this is changing. So we were talking earlier. We're going to try to get. I'm going to try to get the newest IEEE book, and I think they might have adjusted this. But if we go to a typical transformer and just run some quick math, what is? Remind me, what's that transformer are we putting in for a home?
50 kV.
So 50 kVA, and how many homes is that?
Roughly 6.
6 homes. So according to what this is saying, right, if we just take that sample, they're saying that if they use the IEEE standard, then we can install 50,000 times 0.15. So we can put 7.5 kW of solar on that, right? Does that sound right?
That would be per home?
That's just
or
saying
just total?
If per transformer we could do 7.5 kV.
Oh, so you're just doing 15% of 50.
Of the peak, right? So 50 kW is the peak.
Yeah,
So now,
yep, 7.5 kilowatts.
okay, so now if I switch that and I say, okay, what is the minimum daytime load of a home? Yeah, I'm guessing 4 kW, but you tell me if you feel like that's.
It's hard to know. That's a big variable depending on the size of the air conditioners.
Now, I think they mean minimum daytime load of the distribution transformer, which I guess would be the same in this case divided by all the homes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to take it all the way and make it just one easy case so that I can
Okay.
understand what they're switching. If your home uses 4 kW is my guess. So if I was to take that, so they're extremely high. So if I was to take that times, if I say 4 kW, I'm pretty
Now
sure
you're
that's
talking
close.
10 kilowatts.
Then you take times 6, right? Because you take 4 kW times 6 to give you 6 homes. That's your minimum load, and then you times that by 2.5, so you're at 60 kVA
Okay.
on a 50 kVA system.
So that makes sense, because if the houses are going to be consuming
Yeah.
a lot of that power, so you're going to be you could be back feeding close to the maximum capacity of that. Now, this was also the Hawaii example, which could be apples and oranges, because
The whole reason that the Hawaii example works is there's a place for the power to go. Where these guys are generating, somebody is consuming, or vice versa.
right.
And the other thing is that they are very power dependent, because everybody's running ACs. A lot of those solar panels are running hot water heaters, solar power, because they don't have natural gas and stuff like that. So a lot of that power that's produced is dumping right into a thermal sink at the house. So Hawaii is it's a nice model, and it's good to see, but it wouldn't apply a lot to Kaysville, because
Right.
when we're overproducing, where does the power go? Well, it might go to Rue Heights, it might go to Layton, and it might not get used.
Right.
That was one of the things they gave us in another part of the presentation. They called it, they showed the duck curve, and then they gave the analogy teaching the duck to fly, where you're making it level out, and it was kind of a cool keeper program, but for water heaters,
Yeah.
electric water heaters.
Right.
Yeah, they cycle them on, like when they need
Yeah.
dump power, all of a sudden, all these water heaters kick on. I mean, you want to talk.
Yeah, you figure
insane.
4,500 watts per home.
Wow.
That adds up really quick.
Yeah. It makes a lot of hot water too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, Hawaii, I don't think their temperature changes how many degrees the whole year, so they're very
Yeah.
steady.
Right. And they have 300 and something days of sun. I mean, it is unique.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
That's
That's
true.
why it's paradise.
So would it be fair to say this, and I'm just trying to get us on a general consensus on the other stuff. Would it be fair? I mean, that's a huge swing, so I was just trying to understand the numbers. So would it be fair that if we started on that 15%, or if we adopted the IEEE, is that where we feel like we should start? And then we should adjust that as we go, as we get time of day usage? Or what is your thoughts on that?
Well, our maximum array size already exceeds that by double.
Yeah.
That's true.
I say we look at the new one that's coming out. Didn't you say you thought it was 30?
I think it might
So
be
that doubles.
30. I think
Doubles
that's
what it is
30.
now.
Since the government has stepped in and what is it, made them not DOT compliant, what is it? There's a compliancy that all transformers have to meet now. They used to, back in the day, could build burner units that were just very inefficient and just really horrible transformers, used a lot of power, and you didn't get much out of them. Now, all transformer manufacturers have to meet a certain criteria. So the transformers that are being produced now, and as of 3 or 4 years ago, very efficient units. So that's probably why they're getting this higher feedback out of them, is because they're actually better built units than, say, the old style. So that might be why IEEE is going to adjust too, because the units are better. They're more expensive, but they're better.
I see. That makes sense.
And they're using, like, if you go FR3, you can start running transformers 120, 125% above. Pacific Corp loves to do that, but you still have a heat sink there. I mean, that oil is still generating heat, even though it can take the flow. So
I see. So what we're saying then, so it's a good point. So I think the action on that is I'll find out what the new IEEE. So it's the same. It's just an updated version, right? It's the same standard. It's just a new year.
Right.
So I'll find out what that is, and then I think we'll look at that. But that kind of gives us an idea. It's anywhere from 7.5 at 15 to 60 kW, and then we need to fall in line somewhere that we feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So-
Okay.
So I'll distribute that. I have a copy of that coming in, of the new version, so. You're right. Okay. That's really helpful, so. Okay, anything else on that topic?
Does the battery idea that John brought up earlier help alleviate a lot of the concerns around that size? Like if you had a battery at the end of that overproduction, I guess I'm trying to figure out where are the concerns along that? Is it transformer? Is it, because if you had a place for the power to go, I'm just thinking back on Patrick's comment. Say we have all of our substations surrounded by these battery packs, and we are then encouraging customers to go ahead and put lots of solar on your roof. It's free capital to us because we can go now and store that in a battery pack somewhere. Does that alleviate kind of a lot of these concerns on the max 15%, or is it other kind of technical?
Well, you've still got to get it past the transformer right in their neighborhood.
That's right.
So that's where
if you get too many homes pumping power through there, we're in trouble.
So yeah, I think the good visual is, let's pretend that there's a house here, and we've got to go through like three other circuits along the way, right? The study that has to happen on that load flow analysis, it has to be that 15% or whatever that limit we put is what needs to be upgraded for that. So let's say it's a homeowner, you want to put solar in, Patrick has solar in his home, we're past that cap. So then it goes past that first transformer, and then so you may have to upgrade the transformer, would be your first upgrade, and then the next upgrade would maybe a different transformer along the way, maybe the lines, it may be anything. So that 15%, so that's what that software is doing, it's saying, you know, you may, and it's dynamic to where you can just log in and say, I can't do this, or all the way through, all the way back to the substation, I may need to upgrade the 15%. So that rule works all the way from home to source.
In the unabridged slides, page 32, it talks about some of the features that smart inverters can do, and frequency regulation, voltage support, power factor. It can also be connected and disconnected. So they could be set up that the utility would say, hey, your battery is full and you're back feeding everything, you're gonna do some damage here, throttle back or shut off. So they could be configured for that.
What the inverter would do is just cut. I mean, it would cut. Power would go nowhere. Your panels would be out there, but it wouldn't be.
Right. It wouldn't be back feeding anything.
Yeah.
Actually, it'd probably be shunted to ground, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think they just turn off.
Maybe it's turn off.
Because the panels, they'll just open circuit and they won't do anything.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. It's interesting. I was pointing real quick. One thing I don't think we've talked about as far as the benefit of solar goes is how much capital citizens are willing to bring to the table and put down. That's if there's a way that we can kind of leverage our capital to, you know, take most advantage of that and somehow save it in a battery. You know, that's bonds we don't have to go get as a city. That's valuable. And
that's true.
It's not very many places you can go and just have people willing to put the capital in there up front on that rooftop. And so it's interesting as we go through and talk about how batteries are changing, and maybe we can leverage ourselves as a utility better to take full advantage of that kind of free source of capital that citizens are willing to bring and put on their roof. But anyway.
You're dead on, right? If I look at these resource costs and I look at, I mean, what are we paying for power on solar?
6.6 cents.
Yeah, 6 cents.
You know, and I know it's intermittent, right? But if we're paying 6.6 and we're looking at the rates that we just went through, you know, it's really a pretty good investment for, you know, it should be bringing our load down. You know, we still have to have base load, and that's the challenge. But to your point, it's cheaper than some of the other loads that we have out there.
Something I'm waiting to come to market, but it hasn't come in the U.S. yet, is vehicle-to-grid technology, where an electric car is plugged in. It would have to be through the DC fast charge port, But then there's some external inverter that when the grid says, hey, I need extra power, it draws off of the car's battery, and that's just such a cool idea. Why have a battery that's stationary that doesn't serve any other purpose? Why not, if your car's home, why not have it? Why not use it? But they haven't brought it here to the U.S. yet, and I don't know why, but I'm looking forward to that. That would be a really neat thing.
Right.
Well, do you want to buy a battery, though, and let the utility cycle half of the life out of it? That's what you're letting them do.
True. But with these thermally managed car batteries, they're finding they go 300,000 miles on, and they only lose about 10% of their life. So it's kind of I don't know. The batteries like the Nissan Leaf doesn't thermally manage its batteries, and they're about done after 100,000 miles. But the ones like the Tesla and the Chevy Volt and hopefully the Bolt, they're finding they're just got these really long lifespans because they keep that battery at ideal temperature. Think about your phone, why it dies after 2 years. Well, you got this processor right on the battery that keeps it hot as can be, and then we put it in our pocket and it's at almost 100 degrees, and that's probably why. Or same with our laptops. It's right next to the hot processor, and batteries just don't last long when they're like us. They like room temperature.
I keep saying this, but I think a lot of those problems we were talking about get solved with the time of use, because then they're incentivized to have their own batteries, or if they have possibility to use their car battery for their their home storage too.
Yeah.
They're incentivizing all that.
Yeah, power goes out, boom, backup power.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else here? One last thing is, if you guys, I'm going to be putting out the agenda a little earlier to Stacy, so I'm going to shoot it out next week. So if there's agenda items, give them to me early, because we're going to set it really quick. So just, I think she's doing some traveling around the world or something. So, so if you can, just if you have items that you want on June, and we're going to do it in July as well, just give them to me a week after, so I can get that out. So with that, I think I'll turn the time over to the public if there's any comments.
Spencer Luke, sorry for walking out, but I had to give him a back rest. I don't have a soft chair like you guys. I think one thing I'm pleased to hear, I know John and I have actually been talking about batteries actually for the city for, what, a year now?
Yeah, probably about that.
Yeah, so glad to hear that. And a couple other questions I did have, and I apologize, I was trying to look up the minutes. In regards to, actually, nuclear. My dad inspected nuclear facilities, spent nuclear fuel before it's coming. He worked at DOE out west of Idaho Falls. To be honest, nuclear is actually just fine. The problem is you get people like Harry Reid that take where it was going to be deposited, and I can't remember the name of it. You're shaking, you're nodding your head. Do you remember?
Well, the whole thing of it is, if you look at the world, we are 80 years behind the rest of the world in power production.
Yeah.
And it's all because in 1960, somebody freaked out and said, nuclear is a bad thing.
Yeah.
So
I can't remember the name of it. My dad knows, he's been there, but there's a big, huge salt formation down in Nevada.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about now, right? Yeah. And that got shut down thanks to Obama.
Is that Yucca Mountain?
Yeah, Yucca Mountain.
Yucca.
Thank you. So unfortunately, that's a little bit of a tough call, because traditional nuclear plants, they actually are safe. You just, in natural disasters, if you have that, you're going to have all kinds of other problems too. So anyway, I'm kind of pleased to see that they're coming out with that, and I think diversifying is a good thing. So I'm mainly trying to tell you, realize nuclear is safe. My dad helped design the containers that they take. He's like, you'd be surprised at what they can take. Anyway, a couple of questions I had. This might be more so for Bruce, and I apologize to ask them, but I was not at the April meeting, and I was trying to look at the minutes, couldn't. The two things that I have is in regards to the grandfathering of customers. One, why monthly versus yearly? The reason I ask that is, for me, as I'm sure it is for John, I always tend to produce more like a couple winters ago, it was really good production for us. We're not using it. So are we getting checks? Is that what it is during that month?
The biggest thing is that the billing system cannot do it. So she has to hand do 200 bills every month. So it's taking tons of man hours. The system,
probably because the
billing can't handle when it goes negative, and then it does, and then it goes positive again. It can't hold zero. Anyway, we've talked to them a bunch of times. It can't do it, and it's beneficial for you because if at the end of the year, if you've overproduced, you get, like this last year, if you overproduced, you would have gotten 6.6 cents back, been paid for the excess. Mm-hmm. This way, you'll get paid whatever the retail rate is each month. So it's beneficial for you guys.
Except for the fact that then we turn around and don't use it. Then, like summer months, we sometimes can overuse. But and I just realized if your monthly statement is what you're probably getting at too, right? Because you have to do them.
You get a monthly true up every month.
Okay. The other question, and I'm still trying to understand, is, and Alan, Bruce, you're probably best to answer that. I'm still trying to understand the KVH. So you're saying, is it pretty much the same as before? And that is, in other words, you're just not writing a check? Is that what?
Kilowatt hours?
Yeah. I'm trying to understand that.
They're just saying that you're getting paid for the kilowatt hours. Every kilowatt hour you overproduce, you get paid at the retail rate for each kilowatt hour.
And then at the end of the year, if the city has paid you,
that's not you guys. That's the new net meter agreement. A new agreement would be.
Oh, that's not for the.
No, it wouldn't be for the grandfather. You guys are on that. You're grandfathers, so you would get that. That for the next 15 years. So.
But people that aren't on the new net metering, if they
produce more than they consume during the year, and they're getting
and they got more of a check than what they paid in.
Yeah, they're getting the same thing. They're getting paid every month too. So if they were overpaid during that year, then they'll have to it'll be prorated over the next 6 months. They'll have to pay that back.
Okay, that makes sense.
Incentivizing them not to overbuild their system is basically what the whole purpose of that.
I think the only other question or kind of comment I'd make, and again, Alan, I'm not trying to play your devil's advocate so much, but if we are thinking about battery, in some ways I know everyone's saying, that's great, let's just get it free. Well, if someone is oversizing their system, I don't see why they shouldn't still even be paid, not retail, wholesale at the time that maybe they're dumping in. I don't know. Do you see what I mean? A little bit of an incentive for if they do a max system, and I understand it's not just that. You have to understand transformers and other things too. So I get that. But in some ways, at least I would throw it out, be open to maybe changing that down the road if maybe that is a way that we can battery back up and do it when it's stored up when it's less and then dump it out when it's peak. Anyway, but again, thanks for all you guys do too.
Okay. Thank you.
I had an irrelevant question, but not related to Call to Public. Bruce, did you get a copy of the slides that the UAMPS meeting from last week or 2 weeks ago? Did they ever send out slides to you about that?
They put them on the web portal so I can get those, yes.
Okay. There was just one thing I wanted to bring up, but it's not in the agenda, but talking about one of the presentations was Ryan Huntington of UAMPS gave a really good presentation, a terrifying presentation on cyber attacks, and I was just wondering if we're taking any measures to mitigate that.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
In fact, we had a 3-hour meeting last month.
Okay.
He presented. So.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting presentation about the world's first utility company was shut down by a cyber attack. It's the first documented case of a power company being shut down, and it was in the Ukraine, and it was the Russians did it, and it's now a textbook case of how to prevent it from happening. But it was just simple things like they spoofed the boss's email and it said, "Hey, look at this attachment," and Microsoft Excel said, "Are you sure you want to open this? It looks like it's got a macro in it." And he's like, "Well, it's from the boss. I got to open it." And then it said, "Are you positive you want to open it?" And he's like, "Yeah." And it launched a little thing around on his computer, but it didn't like bring up a lot of pop-ups and gambling and porn or anything. No, nothing like that. It just stayed silent on his computer for months and months, and just collected information. And eventually, it got enough information that it was able to get in. They were able to have remote access to the control systems, and then they played havoc and shut the thing down. And they were without power for only like 6 hours, but it was months and months before they sorted it all out and got it back up and secure again. And it was a really interesting.
It's the joy of SCADA. Yeah, I was going to say that's why we don't have SCADA.
and that was, you probably didn't know this, but I just want to share this. That was the 2 takeaways was. Change the default password of all of your networking equipment, so people can't just come in and log in. Having 2 separate networks, a business side and the SCADA side, the power equipment side, and they never connect. Like, they're totally separate networks, and the power side can never be remotely accessed. Like, it's just off the grid or off the internet. And so anyway, and backing up data, they talked about ransomware and always having backups of things. So anyway, you probably heard all of that. And,
Yeah, it was a good presentation.
but I was scared after hearing it. It was really good.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you for sharing. I think I wrote it down just to hear more. I'd love to talk about it and see what we are doing. Because I put it down as a future agenda item. I think it's a good thing we should definitely address. So.
I asked him if our fiber project was a concern, because we've got potential of like Comcast on one fiber or some other entity on one pair and we're on another pair, and they said no, that's not a concern as long as they're separate. But they're sharing the same bundle, but they're separate.
And we could have Ryan Judd's our IT manager, and he could come in and tell us all the different things that they're doing. So,
okay.
Where are they with that project? Is that in next year's budget?
No, that's this year's. It's going now.
They've got a bunch of it done.
Wow.
I believe they got the majority of it, right?
Yeah.
A few areas I believe they're still working on. Got most cable in here.
Who's doing it for us?
Connects.
Next.
Connects.
Next. Oh, okay.
Okay. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to end the meeting.
I'll make the motion.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye.